guys, and welcome back to my Inktober project. This is day number 11, and the prompt I'm using is Masquerade. Now, when I picked this prompt at the end of my last video, the first thing that came to mind was one of the characters that I had designed a long time ago, and she is one of my very few characters that are actually developed with a more finalized design as well as a name. And her name is Evelyn Archer, and she has been around since pretty much the beginning of my Instagram. And I started that Instagram when I was just getting started learning how to draw. So she has kind of been a big part of my artistic journey, I suppose you could say. She was one of the first characters that I drew multiple times over. A lot of times in my art, I will draw a single character and then never draw them again. And Evelyn was one of the very first instances of me getting attached to a design, I suppose you could say. Now, there's a lot to her story that I can't really get into just because the video would be far too long, but kind of breaking it down very, very simply, a big part of her storyline is that she's a vigilante, and part of her default outfit is a masquerade mask. Particularly because she is a fan of things very theatrical and dramatic in nature. So of course that is where my brain went when I saw the word masquerade. And it's actually been a very long time since I've drawn Evelyn, and I've never really been amazing at drawing her from other angles. I tend to draw her from straight on because she has a very distinctive jawline. Her face is fairly rectangular, she has a very square jawline, and knowing exactly what that would look like from the side or a 3/4 angle, as is the case in this illustration, has always been kind of difficult for me. But I figured it would be in my best interests to kind of push outside of my comfort zone and try something new with her. And it turned out to be a very fun challenge. Mostly because I was drawing her again, and it had been so long, and it was just very enjoyable to kind of reawaken a character. While I'm on the topic of Evelyn, I eventually would really like to do something more final with her. I have a good handful of other character designs that are a part of that storyline. There are at least 5 that are fully developed with names and personalities, and then there are probably about 4 or 5 more that are just character designs, and they have a spot in the story, but their personalities haven't been fully developed yet. In the past, I've also done some brainstorming trying to figure out what kind of plot I want these characters to be in. It's definitely a lot of fun for me. Storytelling is something that I really thrive on, and the idea of being able to do that through the combination of artwork and words is very appealing to me. And I know that I mentioned on this channel, specifically during Inktober, that I would very much like to do a comic book / graphic novel type project. However, as I mentioned, as of right now, their personalities and interests are really the only finalized things of their story. There are a few events that are very necessary to the story, but as far as an actual solid plot is concerned, I don't really have that nailed down. And even though I really like the idea of creating a comic book / graphic novel type project, I'm not 100% that it would be with Evelyn. And that is because I actually have another idea for a graphic novel that I would eventually like to do. And that one specifically I talked about on my other YouTube channel before I switched over to this one. And that idea primarily revolves around the concept of a cyberpunk universe, mostly because I just think that it would be very fun to draw and color, and I just think it would be a fun universe to create a graphic novel out of. And unfortunately, Evelyn's universe is not really in line with the concept of a cyberpunk universe, so I can't really combine the two as much as I would like to. At least not if I was trying to tell their base stories and not some type of spin-off. So it would be a very intense commitment to say I wanted to do a comic with Evelyn and a graphic novel with something cyberpunk, but who knows what the future will hold, and I guess we'll just have to see what happens. So kind of moving away from the idea of Evelyn as a character and her universe, I want to talk specifically about this piece. As I mentioned with my last video, I had a moment with this piece where I should have trusted my gut and I didn't. And in this particular instance, it actually happened with the eyes. I knew that the sizing/spacing of them was off. One of her eyes should be bigger than the other, but they are very, very similar. Far too similar for a face that is turned slightly away. And I knew that when I was doing the sketch, but for some reason I just decided to go with it. Eventually, I hope that I'll get better at trusting myself with those sorts of things. I shouldn't just ignore my instinct when I think that something is off, specifically if I know what that something is. But as far as this piece and the last piece are concerned, I'm just going to have to deal with the results. Another thing about this piece is that I had a lot of fun doing the details of the top. As I mentioned in my last video, this is something I've kind of been practicing/playing with in my own personal practice. And so it was just kind of good to see some of that pay off and create a result that I'm happy with. It also is very much in line with Evelyn and her character. She tends to like things that are a little over the top and extreme. I think in some regard it's kind of an extension of my own personal interests. As storytellers and illustrators, sometimes we do that. We kind of create reflections of different parts of ourselves in our work. And so in some regards, I think Evelyn is like that for me, and it's why I have such an attachment to her. However, we are also very different in a lot of ways, and I wasn't just drawing/writing myself. And the last thing I wanted to mention about this piece is actually the use of moths. A couple of days ago, when the prompt I was working from actually was moth, I had a lot of fun drawing them and incorporating them into my piece. And so I knew that I wanted to do it again with this one, especially because it just felt like it could very much be part of her character's style. And so once I had made that connection in my brain, I just kind of went with it and figured I would find a way to make it relevant. And I ended up doing that in the parallel between the moth on her shoulder and the actual design of her mask. And when I was actually doing the sketching/thumbnailing/general brainstorming for this piece, I thoroughly enjoyed drawing moths. And so not only will you probably see more of them popping up in my future Inktober pieces, but I also have a little bit of an idea swimming around in the back of my head for a collage sheet style product for my Etsy shop that may eventually become a reality as well. Who knows, I might even make stickers out of them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little time-lapse process, and I'm going to transition us into the last part of this video, where I am going to be picking the prompt for the next video. So here is my completed piece for day number 11 of Inktober. As you can see, there are quite a few elements in this piece that tie back to other days, and I had a lot of fun incorporating them. And one thing that I really like about this piece that I'm not sure you could see in the actual time lapse was actually my signature. And I'll pull it up close here so you can see. I initially wrote it in white and then I outlined it in black, and I just really like the effect of it. I think it looks really cool. So with all that being said, I'm going to set this piece aside and we will pick the next prompt. And here we have the prompt hat. And without further ado, let's go. I have picked this prompt, and it is all dolled up. My brain is kind of already taking this in directions that are contrary to what it implies, which has the potential to be interesting. So I'm very curious about this. I think I will need to do a fair amount of brainstorming and thumbnailing before I really get an idea nailed down, but it has the potential to be right in line with my interests, and that is something I'm very excited about. So thank you all so much for watching my video for day number 10. I hope you guys enjoyed the time-lapse and the finished piece as much as I do. You can subscribe to see my future Inktober pieces, including what I do for this prompt, and I will see you guys next time.